Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. Russian officials say there's a chance a prisoner exchange that includes notorious arms dealer Viktor Bout going back to Russia for WNBA superstar Brittney Griner and businessman Paul Whelan. However, Whelan's family says he's missing, and Griner's family continues to express grave concern for her. We'll have the latest in that saga. And the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi continues as the U.S. Department of Justice has filed a new lawsuit against the city while settling another. But first, Hakeem Jeffries was elected yesterday to lead Democrats in the U.S. House, making him the first Black American to lead a political party in Congress. We discussed with Barrington Salmon and Cheryl Smith of the Texas Metro News and iMessenger Media. Hey, good morning, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
Always good to have Cheryl, and an NMPA board member. We have to say that. Hey, so Barrington, big day yesterday on Capitol Hill. Democrats elected New York Rep. Hakeem Jeffries as his party leader, the congressman who once quoted, and this is what's cool about him. He wore a tracksuit and quoted Biggie Smalls, the late notorious B.I.G. during one of former President Trump's impeachment hearings. He said, "If you don't know, now you know." And Jeffries is taking over. But more importantly, I think Cheryl and Barrington, Democrats have finally recognized it's time to get younger.
Yeah, America is very much a gerontocracy. Pelosi is 82, Steny Hoyer is 80, Clyburn is like 81 or 82.
Yeah.
And we have all these old people who have served well, served honorably, most of them. But I'm glad that I think that if the Democrats had won back the House, they wouldn't have done this. So this is good that they've decided to move to younger people at this particular point.
Well, I think the pressure was kind of on, and I happened to have been in the nation's capital when Speaker Pelosi announced that she would be stepping down, and at the same time, U.S. Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson, who actually entered Congress at the same time as Clyburn, as Representative Clyburn, they were unveiling her picture because she chaired that powerful STEM committee, Science and Technology Committee, and she talked about Representative Jeffries and shared an insight. She was very emotional about it in her office, talking about how he's always really well prepared and how she was supporting him. And she went real deep about what type of person, what type of character, how he came into Congress almost 10 years ago, and the kind of demeanor that he took, that he didn't come in trying to know everything, but trying to learn everything. And so she said at that time that it would be like the crowning cap on her career if they would elect him. And this is what she said in her office. But later, when she got out to the science and technology room, and it was her time to speak after they unveiled this portrait of her, she called on all those who were able to vote. She said, "Please, would you vote for him?" And she talked about the leadership of in the past, and this was not a slight on them, she said, but she said it was time, and I hear you, Barrington, because it was time for some color, and that
Yeah,
was the
that too. Because
statement.
what's his name from California? It's a Latino from California, Aguilar, takes over a leadership position too.
Yeah.
Right. And they said these people made a decision. And interesting, these people made a decision that their white counterparts don't make. Their white counterparts usually stay in office forever. And, and interestingly, Barrington, you said we talked about holding our leaders accountable. And we need to take the position that everyone who holds a seat that they are our leaders and they need to act like it, even if we tend to only hold those who look like us accountable.
No. I wasn't talking just about people that look like us. I'm talking about all of them, the entire cabal of them.
And
They're,
I'm glad to hear that because, oftentimes we don't do that.
oh no. We got to do that because here's the deal. I'm always doing my little bits of research. We're
Right.
American taxpayers are paying the 535 members of Congress almost $93 million a year. We need to be getting our money's worth from these people.
And let's not talk about the benefits.
Oh God. And there was a survey that I saw recently that said only about 2% of the true needs and concerns of the American public is passed in Congress. So that incongruity doesn't make any sense. So as I said before we came on, we're supposed to make them not sleep. If they're supposed to not be able to sleep if they're not doing the things that we are demanding that they do.
And we know that the Republicans will have the majority starting in January, but
maybe
it's a very slim majority. It's a very slim. No, they have clinched the majority.
Yeah, I know that, but if you even taking a look at all of the turmoil, which I love, the more chaos that's going on in what used to be a political party, the less time that they're going to have to mess with us.
Well, and another important thing to think about when you think about the House, right? Here we are, it's December 1st, which means that they got only a couple of weeks, the Democrats, to get some things done that they want to get done, because nothing will get done the next 2 years except investigations, hearings, and that's that.
But I've been hearing that they started working even before the midterms.
Yes.
Trying to seal up alliances and get agreements and stuff, because they understand that after January is going to be a whole different ballgame.
And while they're doing that, the other side was also preparing for what they were going to do. And just like, I'll use even Georgia as an example, there was some people saying, well, we're going to get a good night's rest and then we'll go out and start preparing for Warnock and Walker. And there were others who said, we ain't sleeping.
Yeah. Well, former President Obama was in Atlanta yesterday campaigning for Senator Warnock. This coming up in what is it, December 6th on Tuesday. We'll see. And speaking of former presidents, real quick, gotta mention that Congress finally got the tax returns. 6 years of filings. They got, it's going to be interesting. We already know what we're not going to see, right? We're not going to see in those taxes that they were actually paid.
And we're going to also see that he's not really a billionaire.
And we're going to see that too, which is probably, those are the two things, right? Barrington and Cheryl, that he wanted to hide the most.
Yeah, that's what I think. And I mean, it says something to me that it took 6 years to get something that Congress should have easy access to.
Immediately.
It doesn't make any sense. And I mean, I'm going off tangent a little bit, but this whole idea of they're still dealing with this bum with kid gloves. Oh, we've never held any president to, we don't know if we can put him on trial. Really?
Because one of the distinctions they did make, Merrick Garland did make, was the fact that they do not believe that whatsoever that he has any type of immunity because of his actions on January 6th actions, I should say. Doesn't give him any type of immunity if he's found to have, which we know he incited that. If he is any way found to have incited that and is charged with sedition or even worse, he has no. He's not inoculated from that because he would have been directly involved in that. So he's not inoculated. They can say that all they want, but
they still take care of their own, bruh.
Yeah, it's exactly. So it's up to them.
Of their own. So, I can imagine that 10 years from now, they'll still be talking about whether or not he should be going on trial and all that foolishness. So it's like,
I think we should let Cheryl put him on trial. I think Cheryl should be the prosecutor.
That'd be great.
Listen, get me started. You mentioned president. I thought you were going to. You said former president. I thought you were going to mention Bill Clinton, because he's been in headlines recently as well. But just want to say a caveat to this whole thing about Trump. We're going to see some fighting amongst folks in the Republican Party for sure. But, this gets back to what the Democrats are going to have to do, and then to what the Black press is going to have to do. Because, Barrington, I don't know if you were saying us as the Black press, we have to do so also, but we have to start putting that pressure on, because folks are getting away with too much. And I just wanted to say that on this day, on this December 1st, World AIDS Day, this has nothing to do with it. I don't want to leave without saying that, because it's really significant if we think about when we first heard about AIDS and what was going on and how we were reacting to it. It's almost similar to how we reacted to COVID and monkeypox. That they said it impacted someone else, so we didn't get up in arms and do what we needed to do to protect our communities. And then other communities were, because they said, "Oh, white male," and they did what they could do, and they got the money and the education to save themselves. And we get it late. We get, "Oh, it doesn't impact you," and then all of a sudden we see the devastation of what happens on the tail end. And the former president tested positive for COVID, but we cannot deny that there are surges across this country with us, and we need to still educate our people on COVID-19, on the variants surrounding it, and on monkeypox as well.
Cheryl and Barrington, Cheryl, you mentioned World AIDS Day. We don't really hear a whole lot about AIDS and HIV anymore, and not especially like we used to, and it's particularly that since COVID.
I think because there's so many cocktails and other types of medication that have really helped to diminish the presence of the disease. And a lot of people, I mean, I look at Magic Johnson all the time, and I'm just amazed how well he looks. And
yeah. Well, you remember his never progressed to from HIV to AIDS.
Oh, I don't know. I just know that with the type of money that he has and access to the types of quality medical care he has, it's different from if Barrington had HIV or whatever. But we should still be talking about it. And one of the things that really strikes me is that I keep on seeing these reports, medical reports, about STDs. They said STDs among young people is like off the hook. And you have young people who they interview who say we do not use contraception, and they just jump from one person to one person to one person. And so they said in places like DC and San Francisco and other places, STDs is exploding, has been exploding.
Sure, young people are different today, right? I mean, they're very intelligent when it comes to a lot of things, but you hear young people when it comes to sexual activity, they won't even acknowledge that certain activities are sex. Like Bill Clinton, I did not have sexual relations. They won't acknowledge that. What's the deal with young people?
Well, but come on, we could go to counties in Florida where these are senior counties. These are senior down around the Tampa area, around Hillsborough County. And it has a high number of seniors who have HIV, have STDs. And it's interesting because just think about it. We told people to put on condoms as protection against HIV, AIDS, and clearly they didn't do it because it didn't stop pregnancies, it didn't stop abortions, and the condoms would have done that with some. And then, fast forward 30 plus, 40 plus years to today, and you had the same resistance from people about wearing masks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so when you think about what these young people do, old ones, they say you don't get old being a fool. I think that's
You just get foolish as you get older.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I did some interviews some years ago with some senior health experts. They were saying that the reason why they were why the numbers among seniors was so high was because folks, once they got to 70, for example, they felt they felt, well, the women were like, well, I can't get pregnant anymore, so they wouldn't use contraception. And there's this whole thing that I had not heard about, where they make deals where young people need, have sex with the older folks to get a piece of their social security.
oh,
And they said that that was a part of the reason why there was such an explosion of disease among seniors.
Wow.
So
Goodness grief. Well, listen, unfortunately, we gotta move on. The U.S. Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against Jackson, Mississippi. They settled another one against the southern city, but the Justice Department and the city of Jackson came to an agreement in which federal officials appointed a third party to monitor Jackson's water source due to the city's mismanagement of the system. They wanted to guarantee that the water was safe to drink, but the O.B. Curtis water plant in Ridgeland, Mississippi, Jackson's primary water treatment facility, was devastated by the historic floodings in August, rendering about 150,000 primarily Black citizens in Jackson without access to drinkable water. This is still going on, folks. Uh,
yeah,
why is it still going on? This is every time we talk about these water crises, as Flint is still. Flint hasn't been resolved.
no. But as we talked about
definitely.
before we came on, it's a matter of priorities. They don't see it as being important, because who the real people who the federal government should be going after is the mayor. And there's I think they call it a board of revenue, that every time that Jackson City leaders have gone to them to get like a 1 cent tax to help to improve or build out the infrastructure, they've denied them. So it's
Mhm.
straight racism. Jackson is the Democratic spot in the white Republican state, and they have continued to punish them. So until the federal government deals with these racist bums, Stacey, I'm being good. I'm not saying the type of words that I would usually say. Until they start dealing with them, it's not going to change. Because I don't know. I read the press release, and it
Mhm.
says specifically what they're going to do. I don't know what monitoring means.
Right.
The Troke Lumumba, the mayor, has said that they need, God, what did he say? Almost like $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah, more
Because
than $1 billion.
they have pipes that are more than 100 years old, pipes that were being used in the Civil War, during the Civil War, and they have made the people, like, once again, the governor, the legislators, and those people that are getting public money, taking money from Black people, they're not giving them what they need. And there's no instrument in place to punish them and sanction them for doing what they're doing.
Barrington made a point before we went on air about the amount of money spent sending arms to Ukraine and other places, right?
I think I heard President Biden saying they they were going to send some more money. I heard that it's more than 80 billion, with the $1 billion that they've spent. And I mean, I don't have a problem with them sending money to Ukraine, but they need to take care of the folks here at home.
The most definitely. And when you think about, we're talking about Black people, and I know the National Association of Black Journalists will be going to Jackson in Mississippi, but there was a hope. And when you look at what happened, and it's still happening in Flint, you look at what is happening in Houston, and you look at the county, and you wonder if this is kind of, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but you have to look at what's happening, because people, Republicans in Texas, are not happy with Houston. And you look at what is happening. They have boil water orders in Houston. They have them in Jackson. They have them in Flint. And we have to do more. I'm glad NABJ is going there, and we as members of the Black press have to do more and keep this on the forefront, just like we have to keep the Brittney. We have to keep a number of things that are going on, because when we are silent, more we're contributing to it, and we have to realize there is a problem. When we were in Miami and for the Jackson State Florida A&M game in September, people were there from Jackson. They said it's really bad. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not bad here. But I think sometimes we feel like we're dealing with so many issues in our own house that it's hard to look at others. But we need to speak out. We need to find some ink somewhere to call attention to this. And I'm glad that we have Let It Be Known, Stacey, so that we can call attention and call on others to speak up and say something about what's going on in Jackson, Flint.
Yeah, well, the template is there for a black city, Newark, New Jersey, Ras Baraka, right? Is it Ras Baraka?
Yeah.
Cleaned that water system up. It is now probably the best in the entire country, and did it without.
He didn't do it alone, though. He got help from the federal government. And
He did it without fanfare, though, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He got it done, and he pushed for the federal government to do what the federal government is supposed to do. Bobby Henry, by the way, speaking of World AIDS Day, a plug for the West Side Gazette's 2-minute warning show tonight at 8 o'clock on YouTube and Facebook. HIV/AIDS, the fight continues. Warriors in the struggle. Check him out tonight, right here on Facebook and YouTube. Bobby Henry's West Side Gazette 2-minute warning. And boy, oh boy, they use vernacular that we don't use. Well, right now.
Early in the morning.
Cheryl, you said you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. Here's the truth of the matter. If you go to just about any predominantly black, Latino city, town, hamlet, they are in one way or the other affected by environmental racism.
Yes.
Where they put the dumps, that's where they put the trash that nobody else, they don't want to put in white neighborhoods. I mean, listen, Michigan is a great example of the way that Republicans punish people just because we're black. They use the emergency management system. They put emergency managers in major black municipalities, took away all of the rights that these people had, took their money. In Flint, they took the water system and changed, because they claimed that they wanted to save money. They changed the water system to one that poisoned more than 100,000 people in Flint. It is not a conspiracy. It is a template, like Stacey said. That's how they roll. And in Houston, I read several stories where Abbott and Ken Paxton is a goddamn criminal who should be in prison for the shit that he's done, and he's still walking around.
Ladies and gentlemen, there he is
in prison, right? They have been punishing Harris County because it's predominantly Latino and black.
Right.
They've done everything they can to try to stymie them. And so it's not a conspiracy, it's real.
Well, before we leave Mississippi, we cannot leave Mississippi without this one note, and that is simply this: another day has passed, and Brett Favre is not in handcuffs.
Is still walking around.
He is not in handcuffs.
But wait, and Phil Bryant, the former governor, both of them need to be in handcuffs.
Phil Bryant.
It said it's more than $100 million that they quote unquote misappropriated. I love them pretty words that they use when they're dealing with white people, because they stole it.
By the way, Barrington, Bobby Henry is appalled at your language. He says,
people have been appalled at my language as long as I've been here. I can't help it.
Look, tune in to 2-minute warning tonight, and you might get you might be feeling like you're sailing on a ship.
Yes, my classmate. I just want to throw in a plug here today, because in about 4 minutes, the Metro News, we will be unveiling our new and improved newsletter. And so I'm encouraging folks to go to
All right, Cheryl Smith.
texasmetronews.com and sign up, and let's support one another.
Okay.
Greer says she'll be there, Bobby. So hang on to your shirts. Greer is coming. Look out.
Uh-oh.
Look out. So listen, guys. Cheryl, speaking of Texas Metro News, and one of the things that you have done consistently and nonstop, and certainly she deserves applause for that too. Russia and the United States. Cheryl has kept Brittney Griner at the forefront of news in Texas, at the Texas Metro News, and the newsletter that she sends out daily. But now, the situation has gotten to a point where it's it's critical now. Paul Whelan, the American businessman, is now was also sentenced to a penal colony, is missing. Family has not heard from him. They usually hear from him once a day. That one phone call, and they said when he doesn't call, that means he's using that phone call that day to call the U.S. Embassy. Um, the holiday passed, somebody's birthday, I think the dad's birthday, somebody, and they did not hear from him. And Russian officials told the family apparently that he was moved to a hospital. Um, they have not heard from him, and it's getting really, really serious now. One Russian diplomat said that a deal is possible before the year's end that would send Viktor Bout back to Russia and Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan back to the United States. However, yesterday during the press briefing, Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokesperson, said that she didn't indicate that anything was imminent, and that they were still dealing with the shenanigans of Russian negotiations. I guess that's shenanigans is not her word; it's my words. But it didn't seem all that promising. Cheryl, again, you've been on this from minute one, back in February.
And I'm really frustrated. I'd like to hear, you said shenanigan was not her word. I'd like to know what Barrington's word would be for that, because I'm sure it would be.
Hey, somebody get the beep button ready.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna. It really grinds my gears.
Yes.
But because Brittney Griner is a political prisoner.
Yes.
She's a political pawn that Putin's using. I have been hearing that something is imminent. I don't, just because I kind of move around and read a bunch of different newspapers inside and outside of the United States, and they're saying, and I think that, Karine Jean-Pierre is not in a position to really say. They don't want to say anything that's going to scuttle whatever progress they're making. I'm hearing that they're close to a deal. The whole idea that you can have some CBD oil and you get 9.5 years in prison for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doctor prescribed medicine, right? And there have been high-level talks between the administration officials, the CIA, what's the dude's name, Secretary of State, and all those folks. So I'm hoping that it happens soon.
Well, I think, even Stacy, and there's an article showing that staying on top of this, because we can be silent, and you have so many people who will try to explain away something to their children, to their sisters, to their loved ones are caught up in a circumstance. And this, as we get into this holiday season, one of my mom's favorite songs, and I'm going to be writing about it because I'm looking at creative ways to deal with Brittney Griner, even when it was folks were doing their Thanksgiving thing. I said, just imagine what kind of food she's eating. And she happened to be in a place where the food, I've never heard a Black person say that the food in Russia is good. And people can say what they want to, it's your taste buds, but I just thought about all the meals that people were eating across this country, around the world, and I was wondering what was Brittney Griner eating. Well, my mom had this song, Please Come Home for Christmas, that she just really, really loved. And that was one of the songs that she would blast during December, and I just say, please bring Brittney Griner home before
for Christmas.
Christmas.
Mm.
And to think about her, think about the least of us, and again, put yourselves in her place, put yourself in her parents' places, her loved ones, her wife's place, and think about if it were you. Since everyone wants to say, well, if it was me, what they do, what would you want people to do if it were your loved one
Yeah.
being held hostage?
It's kind of interesting too, because it's been a little confusing. In months ago, you had individuals and groups that wanted to blast it out there that then that Brittney should be released and brought home, and they told us not to talk about it, to not say anything. I don't know what the reason was why. I guess because they didn't want to antagonize Putin or.
Well, even just yesterday, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said there's always a chance that this can get done. He says this is what exactly in response, Barrington. Regrettably, there have been a few occasions when it seemed that a decision in favor of it was about to be made, but it never happened. He said that Washington has been abusing loudspeaker diplomacy instead of a quiet one, which didn't help us to do business.
Okay. Yeah.
So Russia apparently wants things to be done
quietly
outside of the press. But it's very hard. You know, they talked to the White House, spoke to Brittney's family earlier this year, and that was one of the messages communicated, that they'd prefer everything to be kept quiet. But it's hard. I can't imagine that family, Cheryl, being quiet.
And exactly, and it's a bunch of bull. Just, because they're saying things. Because guess what? Can we think of anybody who could have an impact and get her home quickly? This is a way to. They are playing. She's a political pawn. They are playing this sorry politics. If there were a different president in office, I believe Brittney Griner would be home.
Wow. Well, you're probably not alone in that thought. But the other thing,
to embarrass the government, and we but I keep saying it. Democrats are weak. When you want to get in a good fight.
Yeah, they're afraid.
What are you saying, Barrington?
You said weak, and I said feckless, because I always say Democrats are weak and feckless.
Okay, and I can think of other things to say, and I said, come on, when you're in positions of power and influence, you got to act like it. But guess what? Black people have to do that too, because we get in positions and we want to be fair to everybody. And I'm not saying you can be fair with also being just, and not you can be fair to everybody, but don't overdo it for everybody else and not do it for your own.
I have a friend that said that Black people only want to be adjacent to power. They're not. And I think the Democrats are the same thing. The Democrats are weak. The Democrats are feckless. They continue to fight with 1950s rules against what used to be a political party, and people that are completely ruthless, that have a scorched earth policy, and they don't care who they hurt. I'm not going to put my hands out and shake the hands of anybody who's trying to hurt or kill me.
Yeah, doesn't this though have a lot to do, or at least somewhat to do, with the fact you said if a different president, the fact that Donald Trump and Putin had a very strange close relationship, right? At the very strange.
Donald Trump is Putin's poodle.
Right. So is this part of what, because Trump has made some really sad statements about the Brittney Griner situation earlier this year, right? I mean, he sort of was taking Russia's side in the whole thing, and which is not a surprise, of course. But is that what you mean too, Cheryl? A different president, because Trump and Putin has this thing. They would not have done it if Trump was in office.
No, no, no. And the thing about it is, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Republican Party as they decide who's going to be the nominee. And Democrats,
Well, in other words, he's working in the interest of Republicans. Putin is.
he's Donald Trump.
I think
Right.
Putin is working in the interest of destroying America. I think it,
Well, what do you say about Donald Trump?
but Trump is his willing instrument.
Because Donald Trump appears to be working to destroy.
Yeah.
Also, he doesn't care who you are, even in his own party. He will try to annihilate you.
But we cannot talk about Trump without talking about what used to be the Republican Party, because they're all complicit in this.
Okay.
They've decided they never had a policy agenda coming into the midterms or even to the election. They don't care about ruling. They only care about having a white minority apartheid government. That's their agenda, right? And like I said, every day that I see the chaos that is going on with them, I pray that it continues and grows. Yes. Because they're a bunch of dirty, racist SOBs who are doing everything. I mean, it's the Supreme Court, it's Congress, it's state legislators, it's governors. We're dealing with an animal that is intent on marginalizing us, taking us back to the days of the black codes and that type of stuff, as long as they are in control. So as far as I spoke to Bill Fletcher, I interviewed him for a story that I'm gonna write, and he said the only thing that we need to do for the Republican Party is crush it and grind it into the dirt. And I agree. It doesn't serve any useful purpose for anybody other than quote unquote white Christian males. They're not a political party anymore.
Well, and I hear you say that, but what do we have? Even for us sitting over there waiting for the Democratic Party to represent us like they need to, I found their policies to be weak, and I found them to be a lot of times anti-black men.
But the thing.
So you lose either way, Cheryl.
We lose either way. When it comes to politics in America, African Americans have no friends. Because I talk to, and Stacey, we've talked about this. I talk to folks in the DNC. I talk to folks who are consultants, Democratic consultants. There's only often usually one black person in the room, usually a black woman, right? Somebody was telling me last week that even in Senator Warnock's case, in order for him to get money from the DNC, he had to have a bunch of white boys around him as his advisors. Right? The Democrats are still trying to recapture Reagan Republicans.
So wait, Barrington, let me ask you this. Well, yeah. Let me ask you this though. If that's the case with Warnock, if that's the case with any of them, at what point do you stand up and say, you know what, I don't need this, then I can go about this another way?
You can't do that unless you have another structure in place, because it is so expensive to run for office that most folks, unless you're like the dude in Los Angeles who ran for mayor, who self-financed $100 million. Most regular folks don't have $100 million sitting on the side table.
So, well, is it okay? So, is there another avenue? But is there another avenue than politics?
You know what the best avenue is? To get rid of this goddamn campaign, to institute campaign financing, to get rid of Citizens United. Citizens United is the reason why all this dark money has flooded into politics, and we don't know who's doing it. Except for the ones that they tell you about, the Koch brothers, they tell you about Mercer and all of these billionaires, Peter Thiel and these people. Outside of them, we don't know where this money is coming from. Mm-hmm. And even with Mandela Barnes in Wisconsin, he said that hundreds of millions of dollars just came out of nowhere. Yeah. And it was the same thing with J.D. Vance. They said if it wasn't all that dark money that came in, Tim Ryan would have won.
Well, see, and so my question is, so when you going back to what you said about Senator Warnock, and politicians like him who are forced to take on people that doesn't necessarily do them any good, right, or mean any good. Like we face this all the time. We'll call even members of the CBC, and we'll get someone who is not a person of color as their chief of staff or as their communications director or whatever, and they have no clue
Because
about the black press.
white ice is colder, bruh.
Well, and
Well,
that's,
We're still dealing
but
with
you're saying, but right, but you're saying too that the DNC or some other entity is forcing this upon Warnock and others, and my question becomes, so do you stand like Dave Chappelle says he's not bought, he's not paid for, he's not a beholden to anyone? Is there another avenue other than serving as a senator, serving as a congressman to accomplish what needs to be accomplished?
I think
Because
so. I think so. I think
then,
that we,
then
I think that we need to, that we are in the middle of dealing with a duopoly. The what used to be the Republican Party is the right wing, and the Democrats are the left wing of the same bird. They go to the same donors to get their money. They go to they serve the same corporate interests, whether they're Democrat or not. So for me, listen, I looked at the 2020 election and I was just banging my head against the wall, because if you go back and you look at how Nancy Pelosi and Hakeem Jeffries and those people have dealt with the squad, dealt with progressive Democrats, they have fought more and harder against them than the goddamn Republicans.
and that is a fact. Yeah, you're right.
So we, those of us, and I'm telling you, it's going to come to a head, because young people supported Bernie because Medicaid for all made sense, because a $15 an hour wage, and minimum wage and that type of stuff. These are things that Democrats run their mouth about, and every now and then you get a bone. It's not a policy agenda that Democrats have put their money behind. I mean, look at the George Floyd Police Reform Act. That should have passed.
Mm-hmm.
That should have passed. But Tim Scott was neutered.
Mm-hmm.
The white boys in what used to be the GOP told him that he cannot make a deal with I think it was Karen Bass and a couple of other folks that he was talking to. So we're dealing with a system that in every aspect, race becomes an issue. Power and maintaining power becomes an issue. So until us, all of us, Americans, black people, the black media, decide that we're going to deal with that, we're going to expose it, we're going to let people know what's going on, and then at the grassroots have people. I mean, we already have folks at the grassroots who are fighting against the system. I talk to activists all the time, voting rights activists, reproductive rights activists, and they'll tell you they go into communities that neither Democrats nor Republicans have been. Nobody has ever come to them and asked them what they want. Ask them, what do you need for our support? They don't do that. So to me, that's an opportunity that grassroots organizations and other people who want to see a different type of system, that's what we can use.
Well, we have to finance our own struggles, our own war, and we're not doing that. And the Democratic Party has a tendency to cry poor mouth all the time.
Yeah.
They don't finance it. They definitely don't finance our campaigns. I'm talking about black folks' campaigns to the tune of what they will spend money on, especially trying to get voters that are not going to come their way anyway.
Yeah.
And so you look at the consultants who they have, and they take the black vote for granted. And so folks do feel like their vote doesn't matter. So there's some things that clearly we have to do, and we have to take charge. We have to stop fighting each other, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or independent. Yes, Bernie Sanders said to kids who grew up being told everything is about them, he says it's all about you. And that's the message that they want to hear. And they have to realize that it's going to take all of us. Democrats, we're getting ready for elections. We just came off of one. If you look at the messaging, folks, you have Warnock versus Walker, and they say, why is there a question? Look at the message that we're sending out versus the message that he is sending out, or his people, not him, but Walker's people sending out. And you wonder, why are we in a battle in Georgia like we are? You have people who don't know us trying to dictate and trying to say this is where you need to go. And sadly, we get a lot of candidates that listen to the wrong people. And the same thing is going to happen when we have election in 2 years, because whoever wants to make sure that Democrats keep the White House in 2 years, they need to get rid of everybody right now and get somebody else in, because whatever should be happening right now, and it's not.
But it's so interesting because if you look, I just shake my head all the time because every election cycle, Stacey and Cheryl, Democrats can't figure out what the message is supposed to be. They get out messaged by the Republicans. They have issues that they should grab and hold. They let Republicans come in and grab the narrative. I don't understand it, because to me it's like, if I go to Burger King in the morning to get breakfast, you're supposed to give me my shit and make sure it's right, because you do it every day.
These
politicians, they're consultants, they do this every day, but they act like it's the first time they're doing it.
Yeah, yes. The fact that the Democrats were able to keep control of the Senate, regardless of what happens on Tuesday, they're going to be in control of the Senate. The fact that the Republicans narrowly won the House suggests a lot of things, but one thing that stands out to me suggests that Democrats failed again, in the sense that they had an opening and they just did not take that opening. The fact that everything was so close on the House side, when it was expected as late as August that this was going to be a so-called red wave.
Yeah.
And Democrats, you talked about their messaging and everything that you said, the messaging wasn't there. The effort really wasn't there. And yet
they're afraid to come, Stacey.
And so there it is. 2 + 2 = 4.
People going to Georgia, they're going to Atlanta. No, you better go to Augusta. You better go to the state, girl.
Go to the bush.
It is.
I mean, and I talked to a consultant right after the midterms, and she said that she doesn't give Democrats any credit. She said that they won in spite of themselves.
And that's exactly right.
There were so many things that they could do that they opted not to do. They were afraid to do, because they said that the majority of the consultants were poo-pooing President Biden for talking about Trump and Republicans being a threat to democracy. That became like the number 2 issue behind inflation when they did exit polls and when they did surveys going into the midterms. So, and I mean, anybody who's a pollster or anybody who does that type of stuff, they need to go find another job. Because
we talked about Hakeem Jeffries at the beginning, and Hakeem Jeffries made it a point to say that he was a student. He listened to the Nancy Pelosi's, the James Clyburns, and he really paid attention. And then he also listened to the younger ones too, right?
You have to.
So he was well informed, and well informed is not something that, let's face it, whether you're a Democrat or not, well informed is not something Democrats are good at, being well informed.
I don't know if that's true. Because if you I talk to folks in the administration, right? I talk to consultants. I talk to grassroots people. They are telling the people up top what they need to hear. They ain't listening.
They're not listening. So it's
the people up top. The people in the middle and the people at the bottom, the ones who have their fingers on the pulse, they're telling these people what they need to be doing. I mean,
like you said earlier,
they said Sean Patrick Maloney lost because he didn't listen to the grassroots people in New York. That they had people who came to him and said, "Brad, we're here. What do you need us to do?" He said, "I got it."
And then I think there was an arrogance in a number of places where things happen, but there were some winnable races in these midterm.
Cheryl Beasley in New Jersey, in North
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
Carolina, we have Val Demings. There were some races.
No, I don't know if Val could have won though. Not with the Republican sweep.
Okay, and you Republican sweep, but also look at what happened. There were a lot of things, and Bobby can speak to this tonight.
Yeah.
And in 2 minutes, initially I thought it was 2 minutes. It's a lot longer than that. But when you look at the numbers from when Andrew Gillum ran versus.
He stole the election.
DeSantis
stole the election. That's what I covered this DeSantis thing that whole time. He was up by 6 points the night before, and I talked to people who said that they dumped tens of thousands of ballots in Miami-Dade County and Broward County.
And that is the atrocity that it happens across. That's not an isolated incident. No. And interestingly, when in the last major election, and folks were saying that Mike Bloomberg was a dog. They say he's a dog. And I said, well, guess what? He's in a dog fight. You send a dog to a dog fight. And that's somebody who would have really put it to Trump, when they were having conversations. Because why send someone else to a fight? We have to look at strategy. We have to look at what is going to happen. We have to look at the hits that our vice president is taking that are unwarranted. Yeah. A lot of them. But look at it. But then the people around her are contributing to it because, how many times has she been on Let It Be Known?
Yeah.
But then what those consultants do, they will wait. Oh, we're going to get an advertisement in the last 2 weeks. No, you need to be.
You got to start off early.
Because if you come to us, if you show us with love, we will go down for you.
But
Barrington,
Stacey and I talk about it all the time. I could list the names of people all day today that I've been calling. Black people who are voting organizers, Black people who are in every aspect, every sphere in this country. And when you call them, they ignore you. But you see them on MSNBC, and you see them on CNN, and you see them in the Washington Post every day.
Well, we're going to give Bobby Henry the last word. He says entities like the Republican Party and the U.S. promote war, racism, sexism, and white supremacy, promote an end to Social Security, environmental protection, continue burning of fossil fuels while they clearly exacerbate global warming, into federally subsidized housing programs, and closing U.S. national boundaries to the poor and people of color, immigrants whose environments and economies have been wrecked by U.S. foreign and military policy. So we'll let Bobby Henry, that'll lead nicely into the 2-minute warning tonight. Watch it at 8:00 Eastern time. Thank you for watching. Let it be known. Thanks, Barrington, of course. Thanks, Cheryl Smith, our NMPA board member and publisher of the Texas Metro News and iMessenger Media. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Take care.